I'm your host, Sharon, and today's episode is both important and deeply sensitive. Our guest has chosen to remain anonymous, and we fully respect and support that decision. What they're sharing today is not just brave, it's a testament to resilience and the power of voice, even when spoken from the shadows. We'll be discussing human trafficking, a global crisis that impacts millions, yet often remains hidden in plain sight. This conversation may be triggering for some listeners as we touch on trauma, exploitation, and survival. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, please give yourself permission to pause or seek support. Resources will be listed in the show notes if you or someone you know needs help. This isn't an easy listen, but it's a necessary one, and we're honored to hold space for it. Let's get into it. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking about brain injury and its impact on human trafficking.
All right. Brain injury is caused by impact, trauma, chemical, and environment. Impact being when you're first born, you're learning to walk, you fall down, you bump your head. A brain is a puzzle. It's not a solid piece. So when the brain is hit, it kicks. There is no way to reset that kick. And as the child gets older, turns into an adult, we go from falling and learning to walk, to riding a bicycle, to playing sports, to collegiate sports, to professional. And that's the impact side of it. Trauma, as an example, would be if grandma dies, and you have 3 children. The oldest one understands grandma was sick, she went to heaven. They're okay with it. The youngest one's completely oblivious. The middle child, however, was really close to grandma and doesn't know what to ask, how to ask it, and usually the family's not aware of what's happening. They start to wet the bed. They don't let the parents out of their sight. Their friends change. Their grades drop, go into a depression. That's on the trauma side. Chemical doesn't have to be street drugs. I could take Advil one time, and it will absolutely rip my stomach up. My blood pressure goes up, and the blood vessels in the brain gets kicked. So you could take Advil all day long. It doesn't have to be a street drug. And environment, if you're in a very toxic environment, as an example, parents there's drug use in the house, alcoholism, physical abuse. That's the last piece to this. And these 4 things can cause addiction, abuse, and neurodegenerative diseases. So as you grow up and you become a teenager, any of these things make you vulnerable. So if somebody starts to pay certain attention to you, that's what these kids are looking for. They're looking for love. They're looking for attention. They're looking for somebody to tell them they're not wrong all the time.
So that's interesting. So that creates an at-risk society. It's brain injury. It sounds like it's related to obviously early childhood development. And it can be any of these 4 categories it's not, when I first thought of brain injury, I thought someone's been hit in the head or a football player, right?
Exactly.
And that's what you think of. You don't think of grandma dying and the middle child being so
It
affected.
starts prenatal. It starts in the womb. Just visualize that head coming out of that little hole. That's trauma. That's impact. It's a lot of it. So, and there's no way to reset that. So that's where these categories come in, and they're all very fragile and very unique in their own pattern.
So I'm curious, what got you more than interested, but what made you want to be a part of this community of finding help for people who are victims of human trafficking?
I've always been in philanthropy from the time I was a teenager. I lost my only child 12 years ago as a result of brain injury. It was a homicide in Dallas. My son had been abused. We had no idea. And I also work with veterans that are contemplating suicide. So my world evolves around children and veterans, and with children, it leads right into human trafficking.
That's sad to me, and so sorry for the loss of your son. So tell me what happened there. You said it was he was abused as a child.
He was abused from the time he was about 18 months old, as far as we can determine, and we had no idea. First of all, he was adopted, so but he was beyond brilliant. When he passed away, he had 48 pallbearers from all over the country. We didn't even know he knew these people. So he had an impact during his life, and he's having an impact now after his life.
Was he part of the human trafficking trade? Was there some kind of correlation?
He was verbally, emotionally, and physically abused.
Okay, so you saw that.
Not by me, not by my husband at the time, but by somebody we knew. And it's usually somebody you know, be it a family member, a friend, a pastor, a teacher, a coach, whoever. My telling parents are, don't leave them out of your sight, and make sure there's accountability.
Well, one of the things we said in the intro was human trafficking remains hidden in plain sight, which I find scary and interesting. And I pulled some statistics about human trafficking, and globally, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime estimates that 50 million people worldwide are living in modern-day slavery, with around 14 million in forced labor and 2 million in child commercial sexual exploitation. Children make up approximately 38% of detected trafficking victims. You're probably not surprised to learn that.
No, actually, in the United States alone, over 830,000 children come up missing every year. That's just in the United States. And from the time somebody is lifted off the street or from wherever, within 3 hours, they're usually out of the country. It's a market, it's a business, it's disgusting.
And who are the perpetrators of this crime?
Cartels, you mean who's doing the abuse?
Who's abducting these children?
Family. Goes back through teachers, pastors, coaches, counselors. If I knew then, when my son told me what happened to him, at that time, if I knew then what was happening when it happened, trust me, there would have been a completely different outcome to his life.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's just awful.
There's a special place in hell for these people.
Amen to that. Florida ranks among the top 3 U.S. states alongside California and Texas for trafficking cases. I wanted to bring that up because we are currently airing from Florida, from Sarasota. In 2023, Florida saw 2,245 hotline signals leading to 896 investigations and identification of 1,655 victims. And the number's probably a lot higher.
Of the 350,000 children that came across the border that on the previous administration, they were given phones. They were given phones with a direct line for help. Not one of those phones was forwarded to law enforcement. They found out.
Yeah, you shared that video with me, and it was shocking.
Then they've already testified before Congress on that one. So one missed call is one too many. It's a life.
Yeah, I noticed. I was mentioning to Scott this morning, and I get oftentimes along the highway, if you stop at a rest area, there will be signs in the rest area in the female bathroom doors, right, that say if you're a victim of sex trafficking or human trafficking, here's a hotline number to call.
But they don't have a phone at that point when they're in there.
But they don't have a phone.
They don't. The people that are doing it and trafficking these children don't let these kids have a phone. No, absolutely not.
So it would be if we witnessed something.
If you see something, say something. I was in a bagel shop a couple weeks ago, and I know the girls in there, and she said, Deb, she said, I saw something last week, and it's really bothered me. A guy came in with a girl, younger girl, and they tried to engage with this little girl, and she wouldn't talk. She just wouldn't engage. And every time they asked her something, she looked at this guy. Mm-hmm. And they said they had a really bad feeling I told her the next time that happens, go in the back, call the police, keep them there if you can, and if it's a false alarm, nothing's going to happen. But if it's not, you probably just saved that little girl's life.
Yeah.
It happened to me twice, and this is the world I live in. I was in Franklin, Tennessee, and my friend and I were shopping, and I walked out of the store while she was checking out, and she watched these guys follow me around the store a couple of times while I was in there, and she said, just hang on, I'll be right there. And I said, I'm good. So I walked outside on my phone. I was on doing whatever, and started down through the parking lot, and she left everything at the register and come out and screamed my name. And when she did, this van just flew by, but the side door was open. I was going to be a statistic, and this is the world I live in. So if you see something, say something.
Wow. And tell us about the other one you
Oh,
saw
okay.
out at,
So the second
UTC.
one was at UTC Mall here in Sarasota. I went in, I was having a lunch meeting, and I was early, so I walked back through the mall, and there was a guy coming from my left across where Starbucks is, going to the right, and I could tell instantly that the little boy was like 6 years old. He'd given him something. His eyes were, the little boy was not there, and he had a hold of his shoulder, and he's guiding him down the mall. So I got in behind him, and I followed them. It wasn't a really good kidnapper, by the way, because he didn't notice me at all. But anyway, he went down, and he turned around, and when we came back up, we got just about to where Starbucks is, and some lady screams down from where they had come from, kidnapping. I don't know if it was this child, another child, multiple, whatever. He made it hard left to go out the front door, and I was right behind him. I was going to grab this little boy, and I saw a movement on my right, and I stopped, and it was a guy. It was in March. It was cold, so he had a golf jacket on, a ball cap, and sunglasses, and he pulled his jacket back. He was watching me watch this guy. I saw his badge. He was a Fed, and he grabbed the guy by the arm and very seamlessly just took this little boy's shoulder and just sort of pushed him to the side. And they're still moving forward as they're talking, and he's whispering in this guy's ear. I turned again, and there was a girl came up from my right. She looked like a gym rat. She was in sweats and a T-shirt and a hoodie and sunglasses and a ball cap. She very seamlessly went up, took the little boy's hand, and took him to the left and was window shopping. When the guy got to the door with this other guy, he turned around and winked at me, and I left. I just left.
Wow.
So, and the mall was full of people. Nobody saw it. So if you see something, no matter how innocent you think it is, and don't be afraid of getting somebody in trouble, because if they're not doing anything, they're not going to get in trouble anyway. Say something.
So you think that little boy was safe when you left?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Good.
Oh, no doubt.
Good.
Yeah, that was the federal officer that was. There's no doubt.
Oh my God.
Or I'd never left.
Wow. That's crazy. I can't even believe that's happening in our own backyard. A landmark report from the University of South Florida estimates 200,000 sex trafficking victims and 500,000 labor trafficking victims across Florida in just the past year. Notably, half of sex trafficked victims were minors, and 25% of labor trafficked survivors were children. Early data suggested up to 700,000 total victims in Florida in 2024, including sex and labor trafficking combined. Now, I often think of human trafficking as sex trafficking. Tell me about labor trafficking. Why would they
put these people into basically doing whatever they want them to do, but they're also sexually abused at the same time. So it's a market. It's totally a market. And don't think it's just children and teenagers. It's women. Stay off your phones in the parking lot. One of the tricks that they've come up with recently is they take a zip tie and put it on the back passenger door handle. So they go through the parking lots, and there's a search car that goes in and watches who's coming out of the cars. Do they have children, or would it be somebody that they could use in the arena that they're playing in? And when you come out, they grab. It's a snatch and grab. The other thing that just came out 2 weeks ago was they're now targeting dance studios. Parents will drop children off at dance studios and go and do whatever and then come back.
Yeah.
Don't leave your children anywhere. Because when those children have to go to the bathroom, there's only usually one or two instructors in a room with
Right.
30 kids. It doesn't work. Be very aware of. I was just had lunch on this today before I came, and there was a young couple. The little boy was extremely charismatic and extremely social. He's about 2 years old. Very verbal, but he was extremely. He would have gone with anybody, anywhere, anytime. My son was like that, and I told them, don't ever let this child out of your sight. And they had talked. We sat and talked, and we talked about human trafficking, and they were aware of it. And when I got up to leave, he said, I'm telling you now, I'm going to buy a leash. And I'm like, that's not such a bad idea when you're in a crowd, you know.
It's funny because you do see kids on leashes sometimes and you think that's bad parenting, but maybe not.
That's when my son was little, that's what it was all about. It was like, how could you, that's child abuse.
Right?
Well, when I'm at Disney World by
Not a
myself
dog.
because my husband's got a business meeting,
Right.
trust me, I don't care what it looks like, I'm going to keep him on and I did.
Yeah.
I put him on a leash.
Kids aren't aware.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to bring this even closer to home. We're going to talk about Sarasota County and Tampa, Hillsbury County. In the 2023-24 state fiscal year, the Suncoast region, which includes Sarasota, Manatee, DeSoto counties, recorded a total of 527 human trafficking-related intake reports via Florida's system. This made the region the highest in the state.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised to learn that. Within the Sarasota-based Turn Your Life Around Therapeutic Court, efforts are underway to identify and support trafficking survivors within the 12th Judicial Court, which includes Sarasota County. Are you familiar with Turn Your Life Around?
I'm not familiar with that one.
No. In Tampa and Hillsborough County, home to Tampa, had the highest volume of out-of-home care intakes in Florida in 2023 and 24, with 220 human trafficking reports, topping categories among counties in the state. Tampa ranks nationally for high per capita hotline calls and is considered a major trafficking hub in Florida due to its international ports, tourism, agricultural industry, and entertainment districts. Runs of 75% of trafficked children in the area are runaway teens.
Yes. So when these children are in homes, they're looking for love. That's what's happening. So they talk, they connect with these kids through social media, through friends, through whatever, and then they groom them, and they remove them from the home, and then that's it.
Yeah, and this is going to lead us to our next topic that I want to talk about. Federal law mandates that youth returning after running away from foster care must be screened for sexual exploitation. Yet audits indicate that 65% of reviewed cases lacked proper screening, allowing trafficking cases to fall through the cracks. So I also learned that it's very prevalent in the foster care system to end up in human trafficking.
The business starts at the top. So the judges, not all, I'm just saying, judges, attorneys, doctors, agency heads, foster parents, teachers, coaches, counselors, they're all involved. They either are involved in the act or they turn a blind eye. Look at Penn State with Joe Paterno. Mm-hmm. You know, he knew all about it. He knew it for years, and he just didn't want to make nobody wants anybody mad at them.
Yeah.
But when I tell you there's any person that touches a child, it should never even go to trial.
I don't understand how people can use children as collaterals. It just makes no sense to me. I'm really struggling.
Parents in the
understanding
United States are actually selling their own children.
Yeah, I just can't even wrap my head around it. It just doesn't even make any sense to me. Let's talk about a couple of big things, I guess, are in the media still. One is the most recent movie, Sound of Freedom. Mm-hmm. And I went into that theater and watched that movie and cried. And I wanted to believe it wasn't true. What's your experience with that?
That didn't even scratch the surface.
Let's tell our listeners who maybe haven't seen the movie and don't know what it's about. Tell us, if you can remember, what's The Sound of Freedom about?
Sound of Freedom was done by Tim Ballard and who's the actor? I don't even remember. But it's a story of a human trafficking victim, a child, and it was a dance studio.
Yeah.
They put him in a dance studio, and they were gone. The dance studio was gone. Everything was gone when the parents went back to get them.
It was wasn't it a brother and sister? The father dropped off, and
Yep.
it was not in the United States though. This one took place somewhere overseas, and yeah, he went back to pick them up at 5:00.
The whole thing was gone. The
And
studio was gone. Everything was empty.
It was all gone. Yeah, and so that doesn't scratch the surface.
That whole movie didn't even begin to scratch the surface. I work with Jaco Boyan. He has a ministry, and his sister was trafficked, and he's based in Texas and here. It's Jaco Boyan Ministries. He does phenomenal work. Be very careful with what groups you're aligning yourself with. Do your own due diligence. Look at their 1099s, look at their board of directors. You want to make sure they're legitimate and there's no gray area.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that movie, you should take a minute and watch it. It is based on a true story. The other one that is pretty popular that deals with the subject is Taken with Liam Neeson. That's another one that's about sex trafficking. But a real life story, another real life story, was the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, who was accused of, on July 6, 2019, they arrested him at the Teterboro Airport. He was indicted in Manhattan federal court on one count of sex trafficking of minors and one count of conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking of minors. The allegations, however, covered abuse from 2002 through 2005 involving dozens of underage girls who were recruited, often under the guise of massages, in New York and Palm Beach, Florida. The indictment states that Epstein enticed and paid minor girls to engage in sexual acts and also paid some of those victims to recruit additional underage victims, thereby creating a network that supplied him with vulnerable youth across states. He, of course, pleaded not guilty to the charges and faced a potential sentence of up to 45 years in prison and went on to commit suicide in prison. So, do you know much about that case?
I'm not going to comment on that one.
No comment on Jeffrey Epstein.
No, sorry.
Yeah, it's in the media though. There are a lot of documentaries about it. I think, what is her name? Ghislaine
Mayer.
Ghislaine.
Well,
She's up for.
she's trying to get pardoned right now.
Trying to get pardoned
But
for her role.
Well,
Yeah.
no comment on that.
So, summarizing, there are globally over 50 million victims. That's crazy to me. United States, youth risk is up to 325,000 a year. And like our guest said today, a lot of the people that are at risk either suffered a brain injury in their childhood. Actually, you said that people are at risk of all ages.
All ages.
Not
It's
just children. So women, be careful going to your cars.
Boys,
Young men. I also learned today that the transgender community is especially at risk, and LGBTQ.
Any vulnerable group of people, they will attack.
Yeah. And are they being removed from schools as well? Are they
From everywhere.
everywhere?
They're being removed from everywhere.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's scary.
It is scary. Yeah. Florida, we talked about. Suncoast region, we talked about. Studies estimate that up to 60% of all domestic child sex trafficking victims in the U.S. have a history in the child welfare system, including foster care, group homes, or residential placements. So obviously these kids need a home, and we don't want to disparage the welfare system, but obviously it's broken.
The system everywhere is broken. From children and youth the whole way down to foster families. These kids age out at 18. That means they're out. They have to find their own home. They have to find their own way. And these are kids that are broken to begin with. In my world, children and especially veterans are the underserved as far as taking the care of them. Mental health and emotional injury are chronic diseases, and it causes a breakdown of pulmonary, of brain function. It destroys everything. So until they get a handle on, even if they can get these kids to where make tomorrow better today and give them the tools to do that, it's like the dog chasing the tail. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah, it breaks my heart too. So what is being done to help these children?
There's a lot of programs out right now. There's groups, CPC, where they're helping these kids find trade, put them into trade so they have something to do as they age out of foster care. I work with people that are building homes for these kids, transitional homes, so they can go into these places for a short amount of time once they get into a job or education, and there's a lot of nonprofits that are now supporting foster kids scholarships. So
yeah, and you mentioned they age out of foster care at 18, but even though they age out at 18, they become a lot less desirable for adoption after the age of 12, is what I heard. So because a lot of families don't want to take on children that may have some problems. Yeah,
exactly.
So it makes it much harder for them. So what else can we educate our listeners about? We talked about how widespread it is, both globally and locally. We talked about the most common forms of trafficking, labor, sex, domestic servitude, etc. Who would be the kind of person that I don't even understand who would want to purchase a child for labor. I guess I understand, unfortunately, the sex trafficking part. But who's paying for these kids? Well, how is there a market for this?
Countries.
Just countries that need cheap labor.
Very, 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 very wealthy people all over the world. And people here in the United States. They got one last week where he went into a furniture store and he bought 6 sets, and don't quote me on this, it was something that came across one of my feeds, 6 sets of bunk beds, double-sized mattresses. So
do the math.
And they backtracked it, and he had these kids in a home.
Well, good thing that somebody.
If you see, the first thing is if you see something, say something. I don't care how innocent you think it is, or you don't want to cause a problem for somebody. If it's not true, they're not going to get in trouble.
Right.
But I personally wouldn't want that on my conscience.
Yeah, exactly.
If, something happened, and like that little boy in the mall, I didn't know what I was going to do, and that guy could have snapped me like a twig.
Oh, I know. What kind of psychological tactics are used to control victims?
Love, clothing. They buy them things. They take them places. Get them a cell phone that nobody knows about, so they can communicate with them one-on-one.
Just making them feel
emotional.
Seen
It's emotional control is what it is.
Why don't more
5G
victims?
warfare.
It's like what?
5G warfare.
5G warfare.
Warfare. It's mind control.
A lot of people just want to be seen and, yeah, you're right, and loved. Why don't more victims come forward? What barriers do they face?
Ostracized, told that they're lying. Nobody believes them.
You also mentioned to me in countries like Saudi Arabia that women have no value.
A lot of places overseas, the women have no value, so that's changing now in China. It used to be that they didn't want baby girls. Now there's a big push moving the other way in China, where they see the value now of females.
So what are red flags that people should be looking for in public spaces, schools, or even in their own neighborhoods?
In your own neighborhood, if you see a home where there's no activity, but you know there's a family living there, if there's nobody, the kids aren't outside or they're not moving in and out, just watch and have somebody do a wellness check. Call the local authorities and have them do a wellness check. What else?
But can you trust the local authorities?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
And remember, the local authorities don't have the manpower to build the cases. So the groups that I work with are the groups that go in and build the cases out. And when they're ready to close, that team steps back and law enforcement steps in because the teams I work with can't arrest. They don't have the power to arrest. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. They're working in tandem. A lot of places. It's knowing what I know and seeing what I've seen. It's hard for me to trust anybody.
Yeah.
It's dark. It's a very dark world out there. If anyone listening has any information or concerns or whatever, I would reach out to your local law enforcement first and see what happens there. And then after that, get somebody you really trust in power, an attorney, a doctor, whoever.
What role do you think social media and technology play in modern trafficking?
Huge.
Huge. In what way?
It plays in every aspect of life. And a lot of times it's not in a positive. It's in a very negative. Showing the pictures going across the internet, the nude pictures of these kids that they're sending to God and everybody else that they have no idea where it's going. And once it's out there, it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can see where that would play a huge role.
Parents have to. It all starts at home. It all starts at home. You can be. Keep the line of communication open with your children. Don't. That's another thing that they'll tell them is don't tell your mother. Don't tell your dad.
Right.
This is just between us.
Yeah.
Make sure that your children understand that doesn't fly in your homes. That they tell you whatever is happening with whoever it's happening with. It's good home training.
Well, and to your point of what you said earlier, though, a lot of these kids are coming from broken, unstable homes, so they don't have an adult role model at home that they can go to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's where teachers and mentors come in. What are the biggest challenges that law enforcement faces when trying to combat trafficking?
The fact that they can't build out the cases. They don't have the manpower to do it. Mm-hmm. And today, being a law enforcement officer is a little scary anyway.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Are there laws or policies that need to be changed to better protect victims and prosecute traffickers?
Yes. Everything. It has to start at the top. It literally has to start at the top and come down. And it's broken the whole way up.
And start at the top, meaning what?
Meaning the people that are controlling it and making the most money from it have to be held accountable. It has to be destroyed and then rebuilt.
That's not easy to do.
Nope.
People in power, to take down people in power. Oh, wow. Yeah.
If you see something, say something. That's the only thing I can keep stressing to everybody is if something doesn't look right, smell right, taste right, walk right, say something to somebody. And hope to God it's innocent.
Yeah, it just blows my mind that this is probably right up there with drug trafficking.
It's bigger than drug trafficking.
Human trafficking is bigger than drug trafficking.
Because drug trafficking drives human trafficking.
I also heard, now that I'm remembering, that a drug, cocaine, whatever, you can only sell that one time. And a person you can sell 50. Over and over and over again, right?
Oh, exactly.
And I might have gotten that from Sound of Freedom, actually. I think they ended the movie
common
with
sense.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I mean, it just hit me. It is common sense, but I would have never thought of it that way, that it's a continual stream of income.
And you can't fix these people. You cannot erase trauma. It doesn't work that way. You cannot erase emotional injury or behavioral health. It doesn't work that way.
So how are we doing at rescuing people? And what's the survivor rate?
Today, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's for every one that we push out and survive, there's 25 more coming in that are gone.
So how many people do you think are abducted each day?
Well, over 830,000 people from the United States alone are gone.
So that's a lot per day out of 365 days a year.
It's a lot. I did a speech at one of my groups in Texas, and I brought that number. I used the number 800,000. And when we went to dinner that night, one guy came up to me when we were waiting for the cars to go back to the hotels, and he said, "You know, Deb," he said, "I didn't believe a word you said." And I said, "I get that. I understand that. I truly do." And he said, "And by the way, your 800,000 number was off." And I said, "Was it now?" He said, "It's 830,000." I was like, so at least education and awareness, that's the biggest thing, is, watch your children's friends. That's huge. Mm-hmm. It's huge.
And if somebody's listening that might be in this situation, where can they turn for help?
There is a human trafficking hotline.
Okay.
I don't have the number available.
We'll post it for our listeners.
Okay. And find somebody that you trust to get out of there. And once you're out of there, then you can go through the procedures, through the law.
And then get help with the healing process after
Right.
that.
And it's a long process.
Oh, I'm sure it's a lifelong process. I mean, I can't even imagine being ripped away from your family or being enticed into a situation that turns out to be something different. Mm-hmm. I was just watching the documentary on the Jeff Epstein story, and obviously there's a lot of the female survivors on the documentary, and some of the stories they're telling. One was a massage. She was hired to be a masseuse, and got there and thought, here she is, this young girl, and, had lived a pretty...
affluent life.
No, she actually hadn't. She was, because I think they used to try to lure women from the poor communities that surrounded Palm Beach. Mm-hmm. And so she was excited to think that, I get to work and go to this private island and, just give massages to this person once in a while, and quickly found out that...
They took her phone, they took her passport, they took it all.
They took it all, and then she was being forced into, allegedly, this is all allegedly forced into sexual acts without her consent. And when asked, why she didn't leave, she was like, I couldn't. I was on an island where I didn't know anybody, had no way off. And like you said, they took her phone, they took her passport.
Some of those
she didn't know where to
girls
go.
From there did come from affluent families.
Yeah.
They were latchkey kids that sort of got lost, and the parents were not there. They were absent emotionally, and these kids they just want to be loved.
Well, in another case, they mentioned, and I'm mentioning this because it's public, because it's on the documentary, but they had recruited or got somehow, they paid the families, and they were able to get 3 12-year-old girls from France brought over for one of his birthday parties. Mm-hmm. And their whole thing was to do unspeakable things with this man and his friends at his party. There's story after story.
The Super Bowl is a huge place. Disney World is another huge place. It's kind of scary.
It's more than kind of scary. It's very scary. So if somebody wants to get involved and try to help with this enormous problem, where should we send them?
I would start with your local organizations that are fighting human trafficking, because they are out there.
A lot of churches are.
Yes, and foster care. Foster families, kids transitioning out. That's another, there's tremendous amount of organizations that are working on that right now too.
And again, I know some wonderful foster families that take wonderful care of their kids. So that does exist. It's not that the system itself is broken, but there are certainly loving families that are looking to give children homes.
And there are good nonprofits too. I mean, it's not all, it's broken, but it's not all broken.
Right, exactly. So make sure you're working with a reputable agency and give these kids a home. They need it. Yeah. So we usually end every episode. I didn't warn you, but let's see if you can come up with something. What advice would you give your younger self?
The only thing I regret in my entire life is not teaching my son that there are people that will hurt him spiritually, verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually, or financially. That's the one thing the children aren't getting today, is everybody thinks this is this just rosy world, that it's out there and everybody's supposed to be nice, but we never taught him that that's not the real world. That's the one thing parents need to really express to their kids and get their kids to understand, that it's not a fair world.
And on that note, I want to thank you for being our guest today. This was very important information that we shared, and I will definitely have resources available in the podcast notes for people to get help.
Thank you.
Thank you.